Hi there, Coach Alexa here. So to follow up on last week's video on caffeine, I'm going to talk about another drug which gets talked about quite a bit in the running community for various different reasons, and that is ibuprofen, often sold under the brand name Nurofen here in the UK. It's a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, which means that one of the key mechanisms it does its pain reduction via is by reducing the inflammation that we have in our bodies. So, why might runners be tempted to take ibuprofen? So one of the potential reasons is at the end of a tough run or a race, you might be in a bit of pain, delayed onset muscle soreness pain, or maybe some pain in your knees or whatever, and you might want to take ibuprofen to dampen that pain response down a bit, to feel a little bit better. You might have taken a tumble or gone over on your ankle, so you've got that natural sort of swelling response around that ankle joint, for example, that is sore, it's hurting, it's it's hurting enough so that you're limping, and again you might want to take ibuprofen to reduce that pain level and perhaps reduce the swelling. The other one, some people take them for races, longer races, or even longer training runs to reduce the amount of soreness that they experience in their body, which some people feel can reduce their perception of effort. If you're feeling better, if you're not feeling as sore while you're running, perhaps you can keep going for a little bit longer. So let's talk through those sort of three different scenarios, because actually the evidence out there is quite mixed. Yes, ibuprofen reduces pain, and it does that primarily by reducing inflammation. That's a known. So, if you've got the flu or whatever, or horrible sinus pain, then absolutely that's kind of what it's designed to do. But like with any drug, there are side effects. If you look on the back of even a packet of paracetamol, it does most of the time what it says on the tin, but it also will come with a number of different side effects. And the side effects, or the unintended consequences, are the ones we just want to be aware of as runners to help us make the best choice about whether we use them or not. So there is some mixed evidence that shows that ibuprofen can disrupt how our body recovers. So that means if you're taking it after a race or even a really hard training run where your body feels sore afterwards, because it's an anti-inflammatory, and inflammation is actually a fairly key part of our body's recovery and healing process, that it might slow that healing response. Now, the evidence around popping just one or two is neither here nor there most of the time in most studies. The evidence is more strongly there, or more noticeably there, if we perhaps take like the stated dose on the pack, so it might be 1 every 4 hours or whatever it says on the box, for a couple of days or so. That more kind of sustained level of ibuprofen in the body, that anti-inflammatory effect, has seen more noticeable effects in disrupting and delaying our healing response. And this is both for if you're taking it for just general post-run soreness, or post-race DOMS, and also for things like I've gone over on my ankle and sprained it and it's swollen up, taking an ongoing, I guess, kind of course, of ibuprofen regularly throughout each day for 2 days or more, has shown to have a bad impact on or a negative impact on our healing times and how our body's able to heal. So something to bear in mind if you're if you're really in a lot of pain from a sprained ankle, and they can be eye-wateringly painful, then perhaps something as an alternative like paracetamol might be a better bet for you. As always with all of this advice, everyone reacts differently to these things, don't they? So the other use that crops up sometimes, perhaps for a marathon or an ultra, is people that take something like ibuprofen in order to reduce the amount of pain that they experience due to just their body being put through a big challenge like a long distance race. So this, again, I think it's fair to say there's a bit of mixed evidence, but generally most doctors that might be out on the course and have experience of working with people actually competing in these longer distance events would say it's probably best not. And the key reason for that is the fact that competing in longer endurance events is pretty stressful on our bodies, right? If you've done one, you'll know our body is working hard. Lots of different systems are working hard, not just our muscles and our heart and our lungs, but our cooling systems, our brains. We get quite fatigued. Our kidneys, our livers, our digestion are working really hard as well to get the fuel in and to the right places. And one of the downsides of ibuprofen is that it's quite hard on the kidneys. All drugs, all chemicals, but particularly all drugs, need to be broken down by the body and excreted. But ibuprofen is particularly hard on the kidneys. So if you're out running a longer race, or perhaps it's a hotter day, or maybe you're just ever so slightly dehydrated and those kidneys are already working harder, it's not great to be then adding ibuprofen into the mix for them to have to deal with as well. So few kind of bits and pieces out there. There's nothing definitive to say that you absolutely shouldn't, but I'm all for people making informed decisions about these things. So just to finish off, I wanted to give a little bit of a case study. I was coaching a lady a few years back who did quite a lengthy mountain ultra. In the couple of weeks before the race, the weather was apocalyptically rainy. So the conditions on the course were dreadful, horribly deep mud. You know, the bogs were just like quicksand. There'd been landslips over the paths. You know, it was a really, really hard day out for an ultra. But on the day itself, while the ground was still saturated and had all these horrendous elements of conditions, the weather on the day was quite hot. So having to manage the hydration levels are really key. Unfortunately, because of the really treacherous underfoot conditions, she also went over on her ankle towards the latter stages of the race. So it was really tough from lots of different perspectives. Almost immediately at the finish, because she was in a lot of pain muscular-wise from the real hard conditions and also from going over on her ankle, she started taking ibuprofen, and she did so pretty consistently up to the stated maximum packet dose for a good 3 days. And at that point, she dropped me a line and said, "I feel horrible. I don't feel like I'm recovering at all. I feel really sick. I don't really fancy any food. My body still feels wrecked. What on earth do I do?" And one of the first things I said was, stop taking the ibuprofen. And one of the key reasons for that is, A, like I've talked about, it's not great when you're taking it in that sort of for that length of time consistently for our recovery. But also, I think it was the cause of her nausea. So if you look on the old the back of the packet, the old side effects list for ibuprofen, it's not often great on our stomachs. In fact, they recommend that you take it with food because it's not nice on our stomachs at all. It can give you indigestion. It can definitely give you nausea. So if you're prescribed it at a hospital for whatever reason, they will give you anti-nausea tablets with it. So she was taking it to the extent where she just wasn't able to eat, and because she wasn't eating much, her body just didn't have the nutrients it needed in order to recover properly, which is why she felt so dreadful still 3 days after the race. So few little bits of information there for you and a little bit of a case study to make your own decisions about whether or not you use it. Personally, I don't, but each to their own, and as long as you're armed with the fact, feel free to do as you please.